I'm wondering if Gary's one of those cheap guys, that we don't pay very much, and therefore that's why we're kind of uh, got the game plan that we have. We're the Oakland A's. We have to moneyball it.
Texting you about it and totally slipping my mind. Is this something that could lead us to moving to like the Frontier League? Where Hello, RailCats fans, and welcome back to the RailCats Talk podcast. He's Chuck Polarek, I'm Kyle Svetich, and yeah, basically a full week of baseball left for the RailCats, and we're officially eliminated from playoffs. Ah,
Yeah, I know. What the heck? This caught me by surprise. I thought we were in it, and all of a sudden,
yeah, got you
yeah,
by surprise. That's
we're close. We're close.
just this many close. So this is how close we were, Chuck. So
Oh,
in 2004, the Railcats set a franchise record for the worst record, being the second year of the team, or first, second, or third, however it raffles itself into how you want to put it. But they set a record of 31-65 with a winning percentage of 323. That's the worst franchise record. The worst American Association record was set in 2021 when they lost 39 and went 39-61 at a 390 win percentage. Well, right now we are 30-63 with a losing percentage of 323. So now we are tied for the worst percentage in the franchise.
I do see a 7-game winning streak in our future.
I, um, yeah, we'll go with that one. As we go to Winnipeg and lose majority of our offense, which I can't really say anything because we went up there last time and swept them. But that may just be one stain on Winnipeg, as Winnipeg's probably one of the better teams in the American Association. And, every team has its flukes and flaws, and it just kind of ran into it. And then you have the Dogs that are also fighting for a playoff spot. So it's not like we're playing against, like, Lincoln. Uh,
Even Lincoln beat us.
yeah, you're even Lincoln. I have no room to talk in this one because it's just that's how rough it's been. Um,
I don't know.
eh, eh,
It's you know what? Here's the thing. We what's the bright things that we've seen recently? We got Miguel Sierra killing the
yes.
ball.
Yeah, he is 16. He's 4 home runs away from tying Sam Abbott's American Association or franchise record of most home runs in a season that was set in 2022. He's four away. He's at 16. With 7 games left, but realistically 4 games for him because we're going to Winnipeg, and I'm pretty sure he was one of the players that was taken out of the lineup because he can't go to Winnipeg. So it's a possibility. I mean, we saw today him hit 2 home runs today, so it could be a possibility, but it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be interesting. I think something to sort of positive to look forward to kind of keep yourself intrigued into the game.
Yeah. I mean, I think the big thing is going to be what are we going to be facing when we show up at these places? Is Winnipeg going to be taking 3 games off? Is Chicago going to be taking 4 games off? Chicago doesn't really have a fight. Yeah, they're in the playoff contention or whatever, but you've also got Milwaukee facing Lake Country, I believe, at the end, and they're going to be the ones vying for fourth place. So Chicago's stuck in third, no matter what. Um, that being said, what's the point of Chicago wasting their pitchers or, getting
Yeah.
somebody injured? So, I mean, you always see this at the end of baseball seasons where these teams start to just go out there and have a little bit of fun and take some losses, but in their mind, they're just kind of staying warm for the important games. So we'll see. We might get a couple of wins there. Um, Sierra might hit a couple in at
In
home.
Chicago. Or yeah, I said home, my bad. I'm thinking Chicago
Yeah.
for some odd reason. So just looking the Winnipeg series is coming up. So Winnipeg, Sioux Falls, and Fargo have all clinched a playoff spot.
Yep.
But Winnipeg and Sioux Falls are tied for first place, and Fargo's a half game back from that first place. So realistically, Winnipeg's still playing for something to get that the pick of their choosing who they want to play um for the playoffs if they win that if they win the
Right.
division. When you look over at the East, the only team that has clinched a playoff spot is Cleveland. So King County and Chicago, Lake Country, and the Milkmen are still vying for a playoff position. So that's still not lock and key. Now, by the time the 3 games roll around, we may be talking about a different story. But at this point, they're still playing for something. They still have a playoff position to kind of fight for. Realistically, Lake Country was the only one, and Milwaukee were the only ones that were kind of really foaming at the mouths facing the
Right.
RailCats. I don't see anyone taking over Cleburne in the first spot because King County's 5 games back. So when we hit Chicago, it's probably going to be one of those like, all right, we'll probably have a handful of bullpen days or we'll extend a couple people out. Like I don't think it's going to be full force. Like, yeah,
No.
we already have what we're playing for. We're playing for positioning at this point. But it doesn't really matter if you don't win the division, your placing doesn't really matter.
No. No. And that's Chicago's got third place locked up, so it's that's not going to be a big deal. Um,
Well, they're the Dock Hounds are only 2 games back.
right, but the Dockhounds are facing Milwaukee, so at the end there for what 4 games.
Yeah.
So one of them's going to go up, one of them's going to go down, or what have you. But they're, even if Lake Country wins, sweeps it, and takes it all, then what's that? Maybe knock Chicago down to fourth place, but still a guaranteed spot.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's a guaranteed spot. I'm just saying that the
Yeah,
play the block is you know how
yeah.
that is. But
That's
anyways,
that's
uh, realistically, that the two series to look for, like the 2 teams really watching, is probably Milwaukee and Lake Country at the end of the year, and then like I don't know who Fargo plays after they play us. I know this week we're probably going to spend a lot of time just talking about the league in general because we got really nothing much to talk about the Railcats at this
Fargo
point.
got rid of Evan Alexander,
Hmm.
which is an odd one. Fargo was making a lot of moves here at the end
Yeah.
that doesn't make. I mean, you're vying for first place. You're right there,
Um.
and you're starting to swap a lot of your roster. That's kind of weird to me.
Yeah,
Um, you went
Winnipeg is
to,
Winnipeg's going to cruise through the rest of this series season. They have us, and then they have Lincoln. There's nothing really for
well,
them
and they
to.
just picked up Evan Alexander from waivers, so
Mm,
it's like, okay, you're well, what is going on here? It seems like the strategy for some of these teams is to put all the money on the team, and then you get to the last month of the season, the last 3 weeks, and you're like, we're out of cash. So now what are we going to do? Let's bail on some of these players that have been here for the year or for years. Uh, that's I don't know. That's to me that's not a very good strategy. And then kind of hope that you limp through the playoffs or what have you. I don't know.
I mean, I get it. There's a couple people that are still on the team that I mean, outside of Quigley and Valdez, uh, he was one of the people that had a worse off batting average. I think having Olid come back and batting a 395 is really helping that out because they have, I think Dylan Thomas is back as well, so that may have factored into that as well. You're looking at a handful of outfield. Actually, he was the last outfielder, so they don't really have a lot of depth in the outfield now. So I'm guessing maybe it was a Dylan Thomas. He came back, so it's just kind of like you're batting a 226 at this point. Like, do we really need you to be on the team? It may be a good pickup for Winnipeg just because offensively they haven't been the best. So it's just one of those give or takes. Like Fargo, I don't really need them, but Winnipeg's going to need them. So I think it may be a better fit in that situation. Um, but yeah, I mean, realistically, just kind of looking at the league in general, this is going to be a very interesting playoff run. How the teams are all kind of lining themselves up. Uh, yeah, the West has a lot of spots already picked up. I mean, I'm the biggest shock to me, I would say at this point, is how far Kansas City's fallen off.
Yeah. That I was going to ask Lamar this when I saw him yesterday at the game. and we got distracted with something else that we were talking about. Um, but there's teams out there that, drain the roster each year and go with something new. And then there's teams out there that keep players. And Kansas City's one of those that drains the roster. Uh, that's just, I mean, what do you do with that? You
Yeah.
kind of, I think every time you don't really know what you're getting. And so next thing you know, you're trying to figure, you spend the first half of the season trying to figure things out and hopefully you're winning. Uh,
Yeah.
so I think it's just a different strategy or a different way that team runs. So it wouldn't be a surprise to me that they would all of a sudden drop off. Now they've won what, like four division titles in a row, something like that.
Yeah, I'm
So
not I
I
I'd have
mean,
to go back a couple years and see. Let's
three, I
see.
think, three in a row, back to back to back. Can't remember. I got to see John West's ring, and in the inside of it, it says back to back to back or back to back to back to back division champions or something on the inside of it. So
They've won, yeah, it's 2003, 2002, 2001. Um then the division lineups screw everything else up, and they rid of the Kansas City T-Bones at that point.
yeah.
So yeah, they've every year that they've after COVID have had the realignment, they've been in top
Every
of the
year
West
they've been the
Division.
Monarchs.
Yes.
They've won.
Yes. So and that's to be expected every once in a while. I mean, not everyone can stay at the top all the time. Realistically, it you probably could in this kind of league just because, but yet again, if you decimate your roster, bring a bunch of people on, not all the time the piece is going to work. It's worked for Joe for a while, but this year just kind of like well, throw this one in the bag because it just didn't necessarily work itself out. Um, we
I
just
think I think the big thing there is that they have connections to get a really good talent pool.
mhm.
And I think they're a good example of what connections do for your team. What the manager's connections do.
Yeah, I mean, take for example, your mean Mercedes, who played with the White Sox, went on an unbelievable run for them. Uh, but then before the season started, he got picked up by the Mexican League. And then you had Blake Rutherford, who was doing really well, and then he got picked up by the Mexican League. So like, they go for the big fishes, and sometimes when you go for the big fishes, sometimes a bigger fish picks them up and takes them away. So then you're out that talent. And yet again, like we said, it's very hard to replace when you get that big level talent. It's even harder to replace that big level talent with someone else just because we see it all the time. You have an injury, you're not going to bring in that same type of player. It's
Right.
you're bringing in you're taking a Division One starter to a JV player almost sometimes. And that's just sometimes how it is. And you have to just find those pieces. And for Kansas City, it just hasn't worked out that way. And for the RailCats, it seems like this hasn't worked out in the past 5 years in general. But it's nor here nor there on that one.
I don't know that's our game plan though.
I,
Ours is look for the JV guys that are superstars and hope that they can compete with the Division One guys.
yeah, I mean, realistically, that's kind of how it's felt a little bit. You know, we see Del Valle leave and then we bring back Howard.
Yep.
That's the bigger transactions that happen in this. And I mean, it's understandable in Del Valle's situation. Uh, Basically, conversations been had that we're going to rotate players around just because we're at that time of year. And if you want to stay, you can stay. If you want to leave, you can leave. And it was ultimately, I want to leave. And that's how it kind of rolls itself out to be. It's understandable. I mean, the man's played a lot of baseball. I mean, from
I
the Puerto Rican League, playing all the way from what, basically January-ish
Oh, I
to.
don't even know that he stopped playing.
But
So
that's what I'm saying. He went a full year of probably playing baseball and playing very competitive baseball to a point to where it's like, yeah, we're not really playing competitive anymore. At that point, it's just like, all right, maybe I should just rest this one out and pick up the pieces later. At this point, sometimes resting is better than continuously playing. I mean, that's
what
realistically
kind of what kind of a tarnish on your resume comes with being a RailCat and a losing season like this? I don't know that you get the eyeballs, but or I know you don't get the eyeballs on you, but when you're coming through and you're having a losing season like this, like a really bad losing season, obviously you're not performing great, right? Because nobody is.
Hmm.
I wonder how that looks for these guys trying to go into winter ball, where I mean, we see this is what happened with Geo
Hmm.
yeah, last year. Geo played in the Pioneer League and did great. I mean, he killed it there and
Hmm.
gets to play in the Puerto Rican League and just didn't do it. I mean, I think he had like a .071 batting average or something, right? And it was to the point where they're like, hey, we're not going to keep him.
Hmm.
We pick him up and he's like, hey, what happened was I made some changes and now I changed it back and then he winds up being, great for us.
Yeah.
I wonder how playing on the RailCats this year affects Del Valle with his marketability playing somewhere else in the Winter League.
Yeah. It's marketability. It's uh, maybe confidence. I mean, there's a lot of things that
Yeah,
go into, baseball, like we say, is 90% mental sport. And when you don't have the confidence, you're not going to be successful. And I, that's what it's kind of felt like this year. Like, there's just not enough confidence in this team. I,
yeah, I mean, I don't know if they all eat the same meal before the game and everybody's kind of like, oh, this is rough, and then all of a sudden we're great. I just I think there was one game where we had like 4 home runs,
yeah.
and well, actually, it was the first Milwaukee game where we like
Hmm.
killed them, and then all of a sudden we goose egg it the next game. It's like, okay, what's going on here? What why are we so bipolar?
Yeah.
That's
I,
bipolar cats, right? That was what
yeah, probably the most inconsistent team in the league. I mean, we're at the bottom for a reason, but I mean, we've been inconsistently bad, but then there's been times that we've been really good where it's like, oh, you catch a glimmer of hope. And it's
yeah,
just like, eh. Or there's be games where we're doing really good and then we blow it in the end. Like
yeah,
it's just it doesn't like the team last year was like, okay, we put ourselves in a hole, but then towards the end of the game, we kind of picked ourselves up, and we were the cardiac cats that came back and would win games and come back to win games. And this year, it just doesn't. It's either really bad all the way through, or good the first half and then really bad the second half, or we
you
just
know, so I remember last season being totally different than that. I remember last season being we're up by 6 runs, we're going into the eighth inning, ninth inning, and then all of a sudden we blow it. And it's like, okay, why are we blowing this? Or we, give up 5 runs and now we're about ready to have the heart attack. And then all of a sudden they finish it off and we win by one.
I
That's
mean,
that's what I remember last year. I don't remember us being, coming back and being these scrappy guys that came back from games. I don't remember that at all. That's not
that's
that's not what's been drilled in my head.
that's what I felt like it was last. I mean, because okay, let's just put it in this perspective. Uh, Last year, DJ Wilkinson had 12 saves. Eisenbarger had three. Leon had three. Valdez had two. And then you kind of look at this year for now we haven't had a lot of like save opportunities,
No,
but you're looking at
or lost some.
Alexander had seven, Smith had three, Pinto and Knapp all had one. So we've had more saves than we did last year. So I think we were more competitive going into the games last year, which I think at some point of those was that we put ourselves in a hole and then we brought ourselves back, but then we just couldn't finish the game out. That's kind of how it felt last year. It was like, okay, hole, got ourselves back, couldn't finish. This year it just feels like hole, can't finish, we lose.
Yeah,
Hole, we do good, can't finish, we lose. Like it's just that's how it all plays itself out. Like this year, I would agree that if we took the back half of our bullpen this year, replaced it with the backhanded bullpen last year, we would have won a lot more games.
Oh yeah, yeah. We had DJ this year that from
Oh
last.
yeah,
Oh yeah,
we
they're
would have had a filthy back. But
yeah,
but again, it was what we had last year was we still had offense. We
yeah.
didn't have any to little offense this year at all. So it's just like what what went wrong in between that situation? And on top of it, we didn't really have much of starting rotation. That also didn't help anything. I figured we would had something going, but we never really did. Anders Diaz really hasn't shown much. I mean, I haven't been impressed with his last handful of starts.
No, he
Uh,
went from being who I thought was going to be the the
yeah,
all-star guy to all of a sudden just like turned it off and packed it up and he's halfway down the road.
yeah. I just
I just I don't understand what's happened there. Um, I reality is I think this year we have seen every type of game. We've
yes,
seen games where we've just blown them out and we're like, wow, this team has some serious power, to games where we've just got hammered and you're like, wow, we're not even in the same league as these guys, right? We've had games where we've come from behind and squeaked out a win in a close game and we've been like, wow, that was great. We've had games where we've been in it, lost it at the very end, and been like, wow, that's a heartbreaker. We've had games where the score has been really low and it's been a great pitching duo to games where it's been outrageously high and we're just like, wow, this is two teams just killing each other. We've had everything this year,
yeah,
and I think we've had it to a point where you could probably take those 6, 8 scenarios and divide them up, and they're just about equal all the way across the board.
yeah.
I mean, it's you don't know what game you're getting. That game yesterday in Milwaukee, Peyton goes out there and kills it, man,
Hmm.
kills it. Uh, 7 1/3 or 7 2/3, I think, is what
Seven
he
and a third, two
7
hits,
1/3.
one run, four
Yeah,
walks, and seven strikeouts.
right, but that one run was a guy that he left on first base. It wasn't like they scored the run before he got yanked out, and then Smith
Yeah.
goes in there, who's normally lights out, and he gives up 2 runs, and then we're done.
He gave up one run
Well, one
on two
run, and then
hits.
the other guy's runner. Um,
Got oh, so yeah, okay, yeah.
yeah, but I mean, it was a great game from both sides, and
Yeah, I mean it was in total it was a 9 hit game from both sides. The RailCats
yeah,
had five and Milwaukee had four. Like
yeah,
those are the
we
kind
let.
of games that I enjoy watching that I had to miss because it was freaking work.
Well, the good thing about that game was, well, I'd say the bad thing about that game, we had guys on second and third a couple of times that we just didn't bring anybody in.
Yeah, I really think that's been the biggest flaw this year offensively is that I would love to go through the numbers and see how many people we've had in scoring position with like one out or no outs and how many of those we've actually capitalized on because it feels like there's been multiple like I could probably count in like two hands and my feet how many times we've had like bases loaded with like one or two or one or no outs and we don't capitalize on any of it.
Well, so here's what I've kind of looked at. We've had a lot of games where we've scored runs with 2 outs out of nothing, where
Hmm.
we've had like nobody on base. All of a sudden, we have two doubles, we score a run. And then the next guy strikes out and we're out, right? Or 2 outs, somebody hits a home run, and then the next guy strikes out and we're out. Uh, we've got a lot of runs that we've scored with
Hmm.
2 outs, and I don't see us having all that many with 0 or 1 out.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been uh, to me, that's been kind of the story of the season. We get a guy on, get him over. All of a sudden, he's at third base with, or somebody hits a triple. We're on third base with no outs, and then strike out, fly out. Okay, we left him there.
Yeah. I, there, I mean, at the end of the season, there's not really, I mean, we can dive deeper into the offseason of just like really dissecting the team. But I mean, at
It's
this,
just why would we want to kill ourselves like that? We should be the off season. We should be looking towards what's happening next year. Lamar did say to me yesterday, he says he's already looking at what's going on next year. So, um, I think the way that he said it was really need to figure out why our guys didn't produce this year.
yeah, I'm a,
So
I'll probably, I don't want to go right now. I want to wait till like the season's kind of like over with and give it a couple weeks, get the season decompress from the situation. I'll probably reach out to him to see, get him on. Not to like necessarily grill him, but
I
from from his point of view, where did the season go wrong? Because he has the more insider information than we necessarily would.
right.
And what are the changes that are what we should expect coming to the next season? Like what's the
Yeah.
game plan in the off season?
I would wait until it's been confirmed that he's with the team for another year.
Yeah.
Because I hope that he sticks around. I hope that we keep him around. And kind of go from there. There's been this talk recently about money, payroll, that kind of stuff. Um, really makes me wonder if we're kind of, last year I asked a couple of players about coming over to Gary and they gave me the money sign, like, hey, no.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, uh, I thought all of these players kind of made the same amount of money. Um, I'm wondering if Gary's one of those cheap guys, that we don't pay very much, and therefore that's why we're kind of uh, got the game plan that we have. We're the Oakland A's. We have to moneyball it, that kind of a thing. That could quite possibly be it.
So that I remember tech.
I'm wondering if Gary's one of those cheap guys, that we don't pay very much, and therefore that's why we're kind of uh, got the game plan that we have. We're the Oakland A's. We have to moneyball it.
Texting you about it and totally slipping my mind. Is this something that could lead us to moving to like the Frontier League where the money is different, the roster rules are different, to where the players like a Howard Rodriguez or Sam Abatini or Cooper Edwards, even maybe Anders Diaz would succeed a little bit more, and you're able to bring in better players because you might be able to tweak some numbers.
Did you say you did? You said Sam Abatini. You mean
Oh
Anthony
my
Abatini?
Lord.
That's a good one there. Sam Abatini. Wow. Sam Abatini. There we go.
It's
Good
been
job on that.
it's Anthony Abatini. It's been a
Right.
long week. Okay, I'm
We were
still
talking
recovering.
about Sam Abbott because we were talking about the home runs.
You're
I
right. I was
get
talking about Stan Abbott, and I got Abatini. So see the A's and the B's and all that. They got me
right.
self screwed up. So
Yeah.
I apologize, Anthony, if you do listen to this. Um, and Sam as well if he ends up still. I doubt it, but that's beside the point. I'm just saying, do we? Is this a potential look at like? This might be one of those plays where the American Association is looking at like, listen, you guys haven't been successful in a handful of years. We want to expand out to teams. Is it one of those where like, hey, you guys just aren't producing at the level and you guys are seeming that if money's becoming an issue, that you guys have to look elsewhere because that could be
If the league gets rid of us because we suck so bad, that would be wow. No, I don't see the league doing that because the league is really just looking for some bodies. I think that they understand that these new teams that they bring in, if they bring them in, that they're going to suck off the bat. They're going to be the Dock Hounds 2 seasons of sucking, and then
Yeah, but uh, we're gonna flip the script on this one. The Hounds in season threes have turned it around. I'm not saying that Gary hasn't been a historic franchise, but realistically, in the American Association, outside of the 2013 championship, I think there's a handful of playoffs that they've made. But in the last handful of years, like nothing has changed to make it seem
right.
like we're going in the right direction. So if you bring in these teams that, okay, year one isn't successful, but year two and three are rolling around, it's just like, why do we keep a team here that is still
Maybe,
stuck in the mud?
maybe they bring in some new teams that suck their first year,
Yeah.
which gives us more wins,
I,
and then bumps us up, makes us
I
look better.
it's just it's very hard to make that argument with like country because you've had Chicago that's come in and that has produced. You have Milwaukee that come in and that has produced. You know, Lake Country's turned it around in year three. I mean, realistically, they kind of turned it around in year two, but they just didn't get it all together. I know there's that whole side of the things on that portion of it, but consistently if you're at the bottom of the barrel for so long, and it's not like the MLB or the NHL, like if the team sucks, they'll keep them in. It's just that's the matter of can they keep the can they keep the team afloat? And you at least have the situation of if you're not succeeding and you're having money issues, you can drop yourself down a tier, put yourself in the frontier league, and you have more of a roster constriction to bring in players that aren't that high value dollar because I realistically see the American Association really wanting to compete with the Atlantic League. I know the money's not going to quite be there with it, but I could see them start dropping roster constrictions a little bit by little bit by little bit because we're starting to see it little bit by little bit. So the bigger markets are going to succeed, which Gary should be a bigger market, being right there next to Chicago and always being up there in the attendance portion of it.
Right.
But if that's failing, I think at some point you have to like, is this a potential switch up? Because I mean, realistically, in the heyday, the Northern League is where the RailCats really made their money worth of the situation, and the Northern League was kind of like the Frontier League.
I don't know. That's
It's how should I put it? It's easier to maybe recruit a player like a Howard Rodriguez or Anthony Abatini or Cooper Edwards or someone else that's looking to make a name for themselves and say, hey, you're gonna play in Gary. Oh, well, I'm just gonna be playing professional baseball. It doesn't matter where I go.
right.
Versus let's just say like a Ryan Hernandez, for example. The ballpark doesn't fit his style. But okay, it's Gary. I don't want to play in Gary. Like they're not gonna compete the money that I need, or a Josh Altman or anything like, I'm just saying that the bigger names that we're not accustomed to.
Right.
And so I wonder if
Oh,
that's
I get that. That's the thing, is that one, we have a field that doesn't fit into the norms of the rest of the fields, right? The
Mhm.
stadium. And we've got a team that has to play to that, which doesn't fit in the norms of what the other teams are doing. I get that. Um, but I don't see that the league says anything because the league just wants teams. Um, does it make sense for us to do that though? For us to make that decision is a little bit of a different story. Um, I I don't know. That's Could we do that? Sure, we could do that. Could we be good at it? Sure, I think we could be good at it. Um, that being said, uh, does it is it something that our team wants to in the future be affiliated with? Do we want to be a subpar, you know, Atlantic or Frontier League team? In the lowest of the leagues, I guess you would say, or the second lowest of the leagues. They got a lot more teams that they play,
Mhm.
which is cool, from a lot of different places, which is cool. Uh, maybe, but I think that instead Gary would rather rise to the occasion or find a way to rise to the occasion, rise to the level of where we're at, instead of kind of trying to find a place where we can just sit where our current level would fit in.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I look at it. I think I would hope that management would want to rise to that occasion. Let's figure out what's working. Let's figure out what we have to do. Um, Joe, that interview went very well that we had
Hmm.
with him. But every time I've talked to him, and I think he even said this, you know, he's selling an experience,
Yeah.
and coming to Gary is an experience, bringing your family out as an experience, and all of that, and that's been his focus. His next focus is the product on the field. And so, do I think that he was willing to chop up a year and say, "Hey, let's see what we can do right now with what we have, with what we can get, not give you the extra tools that you need this year because my focus, I want my guys focused on this." And then next year he's like, okay, now I want my guys focused on that. I could see that. I could
Yeah.
see that being the change. And here's the other thing. Anytime you acquire a business, first thing you're paying attention to is the money.
Yeah.
Because what you don't want to have is some kind of some kind of a leak where your money's just flying out and you can't figure out where that's at and you wind up losing a lot, right? So the first thing you do is you tighten down the purse strings, and then you get a good assessment of where's my money going, and then you look to see where your bang for your buck's at. If he's looking at, hey, I'm not a billionaire, I don't have money that I could just spend everywhere. I need to be smart about this investment. So let me put the money into the experience right now. Let's see where my bang for my buck's at. And then, okay, now I know that maybe I took too much away from the player aspect of it. So let me try to switch that and move some of that money over and see what kind of bang for my buck I can get with my team. That I think that's a good business strategy for that. Um, Not necessarily let's jump leagues, go somewhere else where our current product is what it is.
I mean, I guess I'm not how should I word this? I don't think if we're looking at investments and other stuff like that, it's hard to say being an owner of a baseball team, you're really gonna turn a profit, especially in the American Association or any independent baseball league. You're in it for you have to be in it for the right reasons. And I think Joe is in it for the right reasons. I'm just saying most people if we're going to be winning Pioneer League championships. At the end of the day, everyone that's a fan of the RailCats that aren't like die-hard fans, like, oh my God, this team's really good because we're winning championships, versus, okay, we're in one of the most pristine independent baseball teams that's probably the most well-ran baseball, independent baseball team or, organization. Hands down, I think that's what most people would agree with, but we suck. Like, is that really going to help dictate and the turnover?
I think that those guys that are feeling that way are the ones that are showing up to a few games, and if the Railcats lose, oh well, they lost. They don't necessarily realize how bad it is.
Yeah, maybe not, maybe so. Maybe it's the diehard fans that are just tired of seeing the team lose, and maybe they would rather jump down a league and say, "Hey, at least we're winning." I'd rather go see a winning baseball team. I mean, it's you play devil's advocate nonetheless
Here's
here.
here's the big question. Did you enjoy your pulled pork when you were at the stadium?
Oh yeah, the pulled pork. Oh yeah, that was great, wonderful. That
So
this is listen. There's so many things that we are going to be able to discuss in the off season that isn't going to revolve around. Really, we talked about baseball, but a lot of this stuff's kind of been off field just because of the product on the field really hasn't been the best to talk. And we don't. I personally don't want to rip into the players because that's not fair for them or for me to sit there and rip into them when I'm not the one really putting in the work for it. So that's not what I'm here for. And I think a lot of people want that to happen, and I'm not going to do that.
no, no. That the game before last, Contreras went. I think he went 3 for 5. Basabe went 3 for 5.
Hmm.
LG went 3 for 5. Basabe and LG both got 3 RBIs. Contreras got 5 RBIs. That's the kind of game. But here was the thing: all three of those guys were together in the lineup.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like we got a hit, got 2 outs, then all of a sudden somebody else pulled through. It was these guys were all three of them were hot at the same time. We're doing good at the same time, and we haven't had that very often. Um, so there's some good spots.
No,
These
there
guys
are.
play
I just
well.
think the good spots are outweighed by the bad spots. So
Oh,
it's very hard to really talk about the positives when it's like, okay, I'm in a very dark room and there in the left-hand corner is a very small glimmer of light.
like yeah,
That's and talk about players not trash. I'm not also not going to sit here and rip apart Lamar Rogers either because I don't think that's fair on his part because he is putting in stupid amounts of work that people don't quite understand. Also, not insulting the fan base intelligence of how it. I think the 10% of us understand, but that 10% is also frustrated at the same time because we're not winning.
I hope the 10% understands. It's hey, the bad part is this season went by fast.
I know.
I mean, I'm already uh like I saw LG yesterday, and I was like, man, he's gonna be gone for 4 days, then he's gonna be back here. He's gonna be here for 4 days, then he's gonna be gone.
Hmm.
I don't even know if he's gonna be coming back. We've discussed it a few times and what have you, but don't know if he's gonna be coming back. Gio is gonna be gone, and don't know if he's gonna be, I didn't think he was coming back this year.
Yeah.
So don't know if he's gonna be coming back. Um, I think that the Atlantic League would really help a guy like Gio. Um, something like that. I mean, man, we've got good parts. It's just we've got really good guys. I hate to see him fail, and I also hate to see, or I should say, hate to see him not succeed.
Yeah.
And I really hate to see him go. But reality is, there's other teams that are interested in some of our players, and other teams might be able to grab these guys. These guys might be tired of losing. Um, well, I know that they're tired of losing, but they might not have any faith in winning next year, you know? So it's this is a bad time of the year.
Yeah.
And I mean, think about it. You've had LG for two years and a bit of a third year.
Two and a half ish
Yeah.
years.
Um, Chris Irwin's been there for 3 years at
Hmm.
least. Uh, you know, I mean, guys like that have been here and now they might not be again.
Yeah.
Those that kind of bums me out. Those are great personalities, great guys to have on your team, and they want to win.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you have is that your final thought? You got any more things before we wrap this up?
oh man, final thoughts. Oh, RailCats. I know RailCats fans. I know that you're dreading the next couple of months, but uh, I think next year we try to have a little bit more fun, try to enjoy the games a little bit more, try to make the season last a little longer. That's all I got. You bummed me out now, man. You bummed me out.
It's starting your background's starting to get a little dark, and the
That's
season's
what I'm
just been
feeling.
dark, and it's all bringing the room down.
It's the end of the sunset, end of the day of the season. We're
Yep.
getting right to the end. So let's hope these guys play well. Let's hope these guys stay healthy
Yeah.
and you know see what happens.
Yep. Be the this will be the last podcast for this like until the end of the season, as on Friday I fly out to Colorado and I don't get back until like Tuesday. So this is the last of the season, but it's not the last of the season. Obviously, we'll have the recap of all that. Like, it's not the last official, but the last in-season podcast for 2024.
Here's what I think. Here's what I think people want to know. How's the Joe interview going?
Oh,
How's that?
Joe interview's been great. There's been a lot of people that have reached out, that are thankful for it. That a lot of Facebook feedback. I think it's helped answer some questions, but I think it's been a big like hit with the fans that are there for the experience portion of it, and I think maybe understand the business side a little bit more, if that makes sense.
Yep.
I mean, there's been a handful of comments like, well, what's the game plan for the players on the field? Like, what's that? But like, those people obviously haven't watched the interview. So like, if you're asking me those questions, I'm just gonna tell you watch the interview. Like, I'm not gonna be
Right,
sitting there
right.
asking. I'm not gonna sit there and tell you on Messenger like what we went through because, well, I'll probably have an article that'll come out, like kind of recapping the interview or my thoughts behind it. But outside of that, I'm not going to be like, yeah, this is exactly what he said because I don't remember what he said.
Right. No, so I think that the player interviews have gone really well this year.
Yes. Uh,
So I think that next year we need to have when we do player interviews, we need to have an award for the interview that gets the most views. Um, I also think that we need to come up with a RailCats Talk award for best player, something like that. I think we need to give awards out to some of these guys. Uh, and I think that's so at the end of the season, next podcast, I think that's something we talk about is
yep.
who do we give some of these awards to? Who best player, best pitcher, best offense, best defense, um, best personality, guy that we love on the team that we just are gonna suck if we don't have him back, that kind of a guy.
Yeah.
Uh,
I had that last year. I think I did the year before. I'll have to go back and remember. I have to go back and rewatch that one to see what I went over with. I think I did like MVP, defensive player, offense. Some of it was like statistical. I know some of the stuff we won't necessarily put statistics behind it, just more of a feel
right.
to a certain extent. But I know last year I did one, so we'll definitely have one this year. Like I said,
Yeah,
we'll talk with that. You're starting to lose color on your
I
face. It's
know.
starting to go
I'm
black.
disappearing. It's going
Disappearing
the
on me.
season.
So before I fully lose Chuck, this will be the wrap it up for the 2024 season in season podcast. So
Right.
enjoy the last 7 games and
Okay.
go Cats.
The 0-2. Swing and a miss, strike three. Wrap this one up in green and white.